To people who are not familiar with your story, could you just give us a few sentences, perhaps?
Well, I think I came on a number, was it 8? Something like that? Your first
Yeah,
series of true crime.
very beginning.
And at that time, it was, basic my story coming through shootout with the police, prison, San Quentin, escape, capture again, across the border into Canada, another shootout with the police, prison there, and then finally getting out and getting deported to the UK. And since then, no more crime.
No more crime. That is a good thing. Are you thinking about getting a book about all these stories?
Well, over the years, things come to me, and I've written them down, and they've accumulated, and I've got a fair pile, as I've shown you some of them. So I think it may be time to put them together.
I put we're looking forward to that. I put a shout out to people to send in questions for you, and I've got some here. And I asked my assistant, Amy in Alabama, if she had any questions for you. And she said, ask him if he was in a situation where he had to do something to someone, would his blood pressure rise?
Wow. Well, actually, the one where my blood pressure went right through the roof was the opposite, where someone was doing something to me, and that was in the library in San Quentin. One of those BGF guys tried to hit with the knives, and with the knives flashing, poking me here and there. And finally, when the guards came, I got taken off to the infirmary, and the guy put the blood pressure tube on me, and it read 200 over 100. And he said, "You're overamping, boy." And he went and got the medicine. 200 over 100. And I can tell you, you don't feel any pain. You can't feel your feet on the ground. In a sense, you almost feel like Superman, but
Yeah.
200 over 100.
Wow. So I asked you if you had any stories similar to the Hell's Angel assassin in California prison, and your response was you had a story about putting an ice pick to a biker's eye in San Quentin. What happened there?
Well, do you remember I mentioned one of the problems in prison is how do you how do the prisoners police each other? For example, someone steals something from you, what do you do? Um, you can't go to the police. There's no police. So when I was in San Quentin, there were no orange monkey suits. Everybody wore blues. And some people, if you took the state clothes, they were sort of shapeless, baggy blues. But you could buy your own. And so you could have Levi blue jackets and Levi jeans. And so the people who had money, you could soon see because they were styling. They were wearing blue jeans. And the fish who just came off onto the line, they were all wearing, laundry bag kind of blue state clothes. And so, of course, we wanted to be wearing the jeans. And because the jeans were a precious commodity, it was a $20 bill at that time for a pair of blue jeans, which was $30 ducats. So you didn't want them out of your sort of cell where they could just disappear. And so when you washed them, you'd hang them up on a line from sort of the toilet to the bed frame at the back of the cell. Anyway, so I come back to the cell with my cellie, and he looks and he says something's wrong. And he looks around, and the brand new Levi's that he bought are gone. He says, "We've been fished." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, they get a wire with a hook on the end, a stiff bit of wire, and they just pull it off the line." And, you know, so well, I said, "Well, what can we do?" And he says, "Well, it's gone." I said, "Yeah, but that's not enough, because but this time we were doing business in San Quentin. We were doing tier sales, we were doing the TV guide, we were lending money, we were selling TV sets. He was into selling the speed. And so we you got a business, you got your company reputation to maintain. It's and so I said, "We gotta do something." And so I said, Ask the guys, ask the fellas, because we had about 5, 6 guys in the area. We lived up on the 5th tier, the highest part, and because it was the 5th tier, people didn't go up there unless you lived up there usually, because one reason is there were no nets at San Quentin. There was just a 3-bar handrail, and if you went off the 5th tier, you just splattered like an egg on the pavement. You're done. Nobody survived that.
Did you ever see anyone go off the 50?
Well, you're taking me in a different direction.
Oh,
Slow
sorry.
down, slow down. So, anyway, I said to Phil, I said, "Well, let's put the word out, see if anyone was up there, see if anyone suspicious was around." And so about 30 minutes later, we get a list of suspects. And it was Mendez, the Mexican cleaner. Now, he's a dope fiend, Mexican, though. He wasn't a Chicano. And he used to, move that mop, but he'd kind of linger outside people's cells and give it the eye as he went along. So he was on the top of the list. And the second guy was Buster the biker, right? Now, he'd been up there, and the guys at our end of the tier, there weren't any bikers there. So, what was he doing up there? So his name went on the list. So I said, we got to move fast if there's any chance, that these blue jeans are in sight. So I got an ice pick, and he got a cut down. It used to be a paint scraper, but it had been filed down nicely. And so we found out where these guys lived. And then the choice is, how do you go in? Do you go to the guy and say, well, we want to search your cell? And of course, the hackles are going to go up. He's going to tell you to go fuck yourself. It's going to be a big drama. His adrenaline's going to start pumping. Now, when people's adrenaline go, then they become like Superman, like I just said. And, they could get stabbed to death and still be fighting. And they won't even notice it till the adrenaline cooks off. So I said, well, it's got to be a surprise attack. There's only one way to do this. Right? And so we ran into Mendez's cell first. And he was on the shitter. He had his pants on his ankles. And he just stuck the needle in his arm. The fit was in his arm. And he was done. We had him, and the look on his eyes, he just looked at us with this totally resigned look like, I'm done. These guys are going to just cut my throat. There's nothing I can do. Absolutely nothing. And so he was just there, frozen on the toilet with his pants around his ankles. And we went through his cell and searched it. We found nothing. Now, the rules of engagement were, if we don't find anything, we just leave, because, you can't get paranoid and just knife the guy just for the sake of doing it. So then we went down to Buster the biker's cell, and I ran into his cell, I jumped on his chest, and he, unlike me, you have two choices in San Quentin. The shitter is at the end of the cell. Now you can put your head one end of the bunk, which means it's going to be down near the shitter. Or you can put your head at the other end of the bunk, which is going to be up at the bars. Now, it depends what's important in your life. So for some people, that smell of shit, they just can't deal with that. But for me, if I'm at the other end down near the shitter, I can see who comes into my cell, and I'm looking at them. So I got a second or two to move. But if your head's up at the door, they're on you before you even realize it. And I was on Buster. I jumped on his chest. I yarded back his greasy hair, and I put the ice pick under his left eye. And I said, don't move. We're searching your cell. And Buster, he just looked at me and he said, cool. Now, and that meant that I'd done it right. Because what you don't want is, you don't want a big drama. Now, an ice pick, I don't know. Do you think it's a dangerous weapon?
Definitely.
Well, it is and it isn't. If I stick you with an ice pick in about 99% of your body, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to do any permanent damage, and it won't slow you up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I pull it out, it's almost self-sealing, like those tires on the bicycles these days, right?
Yeah.
But there is a good place to put an ice pick. And that, you put it right under the fella's eye, right here. And you're not aiming to poke the eye out, but if he struggles, if he suddenly goes crazy, if you jam that ice pick up, it'll go up through, there's an eggshell thin bit of bone above the eye, and the tip of the ice pick will go straight into the frontal cortex.
Oh.
And if you yard that around a bit, you've just given him a frontal lobotomy.
Oh.
And there's a good chance he won't even know what happened. And there won't be much blood either. So there's almost no blood. That's if he struggles. Anyway, Buster didn't struggle. We searched his cell. We couldn't find anything. And so we left. Now, there's going to be a downside to this because those are two major violations. And so the
Can I
yeah,
guess?
go ahead.
You've crossed the racial line with the Mexican and the bikers.
Yeah.
So retaliation from both sides.
Well, yes and no, because it turned out that Mendez was a Mexican. And he didn't like Chicanos. He just thought they were basura, right? Which means garbage. Right? And the Chicanos, they tried the old La Raza rap with him about, look, this is major disrespect. You can't let the white boys do this, But he didn't want to hear it. It didn't mean anything because we did basically what would have happened in Mexico, right? Just that's what would have happened, And
so he didn't have a Paisa gang backing him up.
no, he was one of the others, and there were so few others. There was not much to say. It's not maybe like Arizona or New Mexico.
Yeah.
Now, Buster the biker, he was a biker, but he wasn't patched. So, also, we were putting speed out. And speed is the drug of choice for these biker boys, right? And so we were in tighter than he's going to be in because he didn't have a pot to piss in with his own friends. So that kind of neutralized that side of it. And also, we didn't piss him off. Like, there was no slapping him around. There was no hurting him. He was immobilized immediately. The cell was checked immediately, and we left. So the whole thing was over before he could even get excited about it. And so actually, that worked out all right because we wanted to give a message that, I mean, to be straight up honest, I think the blue jeans went into the Mexican's arm, and we were too late because that would have got him a cap of stuff, and he was probably on his way. But we'd sent the message, and the message was, yes, there will be retaliation. We will come for you. Now, fortunately, nobody got hurt. There was no major repercussions. So it went down all right.